That may be the greatest catch I've ever seen in my life.
Okay, I know we are going to get some people upset with me with this video, which is completely understandable because when I'm going through and I'm identifying sell high candidates, I'm not going to be picking out players that you're not going to get any value for. I'm not picking out players that nobody wants. I can't come out here and tell you to trade away Allen Robinson. I can't come out here and tell you to trade away Brandon Ayuk because, yeah, you don't want them on your roster. Nobody's going to be upset with me if I say that, but at the same time, is that going to help at all? Because go to your league mates right now. Go, hey, I'm looking to trade Allen Robinson. I just need about 75% of what I drafted him for. Nobody's going to give you that. Nobody's trading half a peanut butter sandwich for him. So instead, we're going to be talking about some players that I think, while yes, they are exciting for a multitude of reasons, I think they also may be slightly overvalued because of those same reasons. And yeah, of course, before we get into it, you know exactly what we have to do. We have to give away some Fantasy Flock Network hats for people subscribed to the channel that dropped a like on the last video and left a comment at the same time. Let me pull up that last video right now so we can pick some random winners. And yeah, here's a Fantasy Flock Network hat. If y'all have not had a chance to see it by now, I mean, it has been proven to just make you a significantly better looking person the second you put it on. And let's get this one coming out from Jeff. Says, had Josh Allen in my lineup, those 36 points were very needed. Anyways, would love a flock hat. Well, my friend, you just got a flock hat. Congrats on having Josh Allen in your lineup. Of course, that's going to make it significantly better. Okay, so our next one coming out from Kale, who says, big dub this week. Thanks for all the advice and the streams. No, thank you so much for coming out to the live streams. Yeah, we live stream every single night for people subscribed to the channel. And just make sure you go send me an email ASAP with your physical address if you want a Fantasy Flock Network hat. That way I can get that to you right now. Email is in the description of the video. And that's it. Let's dive into this video and let's kick this off with not even a wide receiver here. But we included him the past 2 weeks in our buy low wide receiver video. And now his value has skyrocketed to the point where I think, okay, time to take a profit. Kyle Pitts. Now, I am always the person that's willing to go and identify a player that the opportunity is there for them to see a spike week. And once we get that spike week, then go through and immediately flip for the profit. I mean, y'all know that this is something we did with Clyde Edwards-Helaire earlier this season. When Clyde Edwards-Helaire was at his all-time low point, we were looking at the snaps. We were looking at the offensive efficiency overall. We were saying, you know what? People are probably a little too low on Clyde Edwards-Helaire. As soon as he had back-to-back 100-yard performances, we came out and we said, okay, now it's time to sell. Now it's time to just cash in our profits. Very similar here with Kyle Pitts, where y'all know this is a tight end that, it's been a wild ride. Coming into the season, I didn't really like investing into Kyle Pitts when he was going in the 4th round, when he was going ahead of Mark Andrews and TJ Hawkinson. I had both tight ends ranked over Kyle Pitts coming into this season. However, about a month into the year, whenever he was sitting as a mid tight end 2 in fantasy, I was coming out and saying, oh no, this is a player that you 100% want to be investing into. Now that we are getting a massive discount on him, and you're seeing the fact that he is getting 8 to 9 targets a game, and he is being used as a receiver in his offense, Kyle Pitts is 100% worth this investment. He's a 20-year-old tight end that you're only going to expect to get better. So it's been a wild ride for us to be all out on Kyle Pitts, all in on Kyle Pitts, and now right back all out. I think that this is probably the correct stance to take because this past week, yes, he looked dominant in a game that most people watched. This game, I don't want to say it was prime time because, of course, it was extremely early in the morning, but it was the only game on Sunday morning, so a lot of people were tuning in, and he dropped 9 receptions, 119 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown to go along with it. Now, a big thing that we need to look at is the fact that you did not have Calvin Ridley in this offense. Of course, here with Calvin Ridley, this is a wide receiver that can come in and he can see his usual 10 targets a game. That's actually what we have had from Calvin Ridley so far this season. Let me pull this up right now. And with Kyle Pitts going into the bye week this week, I think it's probably just a good spot to move off of him because we know you're going to be getting Calvin Ridley coming back into this offense. As of now, you're looking at Calvin Ridley, and while he hasn't necessarily lived up to his elite fantasy potential, right now he's a low-end wide receiver 2 on a points per game basis. The amount of volume that he is getting in this Atlanta Falcons offense, it is massive. He is clearly the primary weapon for Matt Ryan in this offense, where through the first 4 weeks this season, he did have 42 targets overall. So that is going to be handicapping what you're going to get from Kyle Pitts. Now, of course, Kyle Pitts, you're not going and selling him for Dallas Goedert. That's not what I'm telling you to do at all. But I'm saying if you had a team that possibly had Darren Waller, Mark Andrews, TJ Hawkinson, Travis Kelce, and you decided to trade for Kyle Pitts on the low based on one of our videos over the past 2 weeks, then I think this is a spot to just cash in for your profit. Now, we're really not going to be trading Kyle Pitts away if he is the only significant tight end that we have on our roster. But if we have him on a spot where we also have Mark Andrews, we have him in a league where we also have Hawkinson, Waller, Kelce, then I think the perfect play is to try to package together Kyle Pitts with a wide receiver from our bench, try to get an elite wide receiver in return. Because if you have that other great tight end on your roster, I mean, one thing that gives Kyle Pitts so much value is just the tight end designation that he has. So if you have him and Mark Andrews, and I think that we are probably right to rank Mark Andrews over Kyle Pitts coming into the year. I mean, you're probably still going to be playing Andrews every single week in the tight end slot. So if you're going to be looking at Kyle Pitts and you're saying, okay, well, now he projects to be in the flex, I mean, all his value kind of goes out the window, because if you're just looking at the raw points per game, while it was nice this past week, it's not going to be a low-end wide receiver one. And you can possibly get that kind of trade value right now. You could possibly go trade Kyle Pitts for Calvin Ridley. If we're betting on raw points per game throughout the rest of the season, my bet is 100% going to be with Calvin Ridley. They're also go try to get Stephon Diggs. And of course, you can be willing to throw in a depth wide receiver on your bench, knowing that you are going to be getting that top-end level wide receiver in return. And I think that you have a much safer bet from a points per game standpoint with that other player. And with Kyle Pitts, of course, if you're using him as your primary tight end, then you're going to keep on rostering him there. More so a spot that I think we can go through and we can look to trade away if we're planning on playing him in our flex. Now, our next wide receiver, I have to admit, I was worried, especially early on in the week when a lot of people were asking us start-sit questions on Tuesday, Wednesday. I was telling everybody pretty much to bench him. We thought Rashad Bateman was coming back into this offense. Didn't happen. Hollywood Brown. Now, Hollywood Brown, I know he has been unbelievable so far this season. He is literally the wide receiver 6 on a points per game standpoint. This past week in week 5, he had the game-winning touchdown in overtime, of course. And more importantly, he had 10 targets, 9 receptions, 125 receiving yards, and 2 receiving touchdowns at the same time. Now with Hollywood Brown, I don't even want to talk more so about him. Rather, I would rather talk about the situation that's going to be changing around him. And very similar to how we were talking about Derek Carr's just absurd pace at the beginning of the season, that there was no way it was going to keep up, that we had a large sample with Derek Carr, and there was no reason to expect that he was going to significantly progress at 30 years old. I think we could say that Lamar Jackson is most likely going to see significant regression in this offense at the same time, because right now you're looking at Lamar Jackson. He's currently like 5th or 6th in the NFL in raw passing yards so far this year. He's had 304 passing yards per game. Trust me, I love Lamar coming into the season. Anybody that was watching us live stream every single night knows exactly how much I like Lamar Jackson. But at the same time, the reason you love Lamar is based on his rushing capabilities. You're not betting that the passing volume is going to be there. I mean, in 2019, where Lamar Jackson was just completely unreasonable with his touchdown rate that he saw, and you knew you were going to have regression hitting, he had 208 passing yards per game. In 2020, he had 184 passing yards per game. So going from 184 passing yards per game this past season to 300 is just completely unrealistic to expect to continue to happen. Now, of course, his weapons have gotten better, especially when they're going to get Rashad Bateman coming in. But I would imagine that you're going to see Lamar Jackson dip back down to maybe 240, 250 passing yards per game. If we are going to be getting Rashad Bateman coming into this offense sometime soon, no, there's no way in hell Rashad Bateman's going to be the wide receiver 1 over Hollywood Brown. That isn't happening. But Rashad Bateman here can be a complementary wide receiver that is taking targets away from Hollywood. And if we see this overall passing volume offense take a dip down at the same time, then I think we're going to be seeing possibly Hollywood Brown getting a lower percentage of his team's targets. And those targets aren't going to be as bountiful overall. I just think he's probably going to get squeezed in 2 different directions, and we can have a very high price point when we're selling right now based on the fact you can go to your league mate and say, hey, Hollywood Brown, he's a mid-wide receiver 1. I mean, we all saw that game on Monday night. That's the beauty of those Monday night primetime performances, is that everybody in your league watched Hollywood Brown go out there and dominate. So I think your asking price can be pretty high. Now, our next wide receiver is going to be someone I love the talent profile for, and you're not even selling him high. You're probably going to be selling him low, to be honest, but I think that his value is just going to continue to fall. DK Metcalf. Now, with DK Metcalf here, brutal injury this past week, not to Metcalf himself, but to Russell Wilson. Russell Wilson has almost gone a decade straight of playing every single football game throughout an entire season. And now you're going to be getting Geno Smith in here at quarterback for DK Metcalf. Now, I've had some people out in the live streams coming out and saying, well, Mason, Geno Smith, he was force-feeding DK Metcalf targets at the end of that game. Geno Smith was 100% looking in the direction of DK Metcalf. Mason, Geno Smith didn't even look that bad. And I probably should have pulled up these stats before we started recording this video, but really quick, let me pull up the Geno Smith stats that we actually covered on the Thursday night live stream this past week and having our realistic expectations on what we are going to have from Geno Smith. Now, keep in mind, Geno Smith, we have not had a significant sample to look at since 2014. 2014? Oh my God. I was back in high school in 2014. That was a long time ago. And if you're looking at the adjusted yards per attempt, it was at 6.0. That is laughably bad. And then the year before that, 2013, yes, his rookie season, but he was down there at 5.3 adjusted yards per pass attempt. So this performance that we had this past week by Geno Smith is not something that's going to be predictive going forward. I promise you, it was more so a small sample thing. If anything, it's also based on the fact that this defense game plan to go up against Russell Wilson. Now that you're going to have opposing defenses planning around Geno Smith, this offense is an offense that I want nothing to do with. Maybe I'm giving Russell Wilson a little too much credit here, but I think Russell Wilson, to be honest, is a top 5 quarterback in the NFL with his passing talent overall. So removing that from this offense is going to be meaning that you just get significantly less first downs, significantly less trips to the red zone, and way less possessions overall to go along with it. The accuracy is not going to be there for DK Metcalf with his quarterback play at the same time. And something that is so stupid, but is so prevalent that fantasy football players do, is they are not good at adjusting on when a player should have a high value versus a low value with an injury. I mean, what you would imagine is, like, say David Montgomery, perfect example. David Montgomery gets hurt 2 weeks ago. You'd imagine that David Montgomery injury makes it where, say, he's worth an 8. And I know this is just completely made up, but it's going to be an easy way to go through and lay this out. Say as soon as that player gets hurt, David Montgomery, we go, okay, he's out 6 weeks. Just say he's out 6 weeks and maybe 6 to 8 weeks, whatever it is. So David Montgomery, he's worth an 8. As soon as we hear that he's out 6 weeks, he should be going down to being worth a 2 because you're going to be that long without Montgomery. And every week we get closer to him coming back, then his value should go up ever so slightly, ever so slightly, ever so slightly, ever so slightly until it's almost back where it was before the injury. Of course, not all the way, but it's going to be something similar with DK Metcalf here, where I think everybody should understand that DK Metcalf, his value should take a sharp dip, and then every week we get closer to the Russell Wilson return, takes a slight step up. In reality, that's not how fantasy football managers operate. In reality, what's going to happen is everybody's going to go, okay, well, DK Metcalf, we got Geno Smith coming in, so his value is going to take a small dip down, and then every week we get Geno Smith playing. Every week that we get that's going to be disappointing from DK Metcalf, his value is going to go slightly lower and lower and lower and lower, even though we'll have Russell Wilson 1 week closer to returning. So the best time to sell one of these players is as soon as the injury happens. The best time to buy low on one of those players is right before Russell Wilson's coming back. So yeah, DK Metcalf, we have to sell here just out of the principle of it. I mean, this is how you kind of minimize losses with your fantasy team. This is how you kind of maximize just your potential to go through and just maintain value on your roster. Now, speaking of players that the value doesn't line up with, Cortez Sutton. Okay, so with Cortez Sutton here, we actually called him a player we wanted nothing to do with coming into the year. As soon as Jerry Jeudy got hurt, we were all about Cortez Sutton, knowing that his value was going to continue to climb despite Jerry Jeudy's return just on the horizon. Yeah, Jerry Jeudy had that high ankle sprain back in week 1. And in week 1, Jerry Jeudy clearly showed that he is going to be the wide receiver 1 for this Denver Broncos offense, where in only half a game of action, Jerry Jeudy saw 7 targets, whereas in that entire week, Cortez Sutton only had 3. Now, of course, we can't be looking at that 1 week sample and trying to extrapolate it through the entire season. That would be reckless to do. But if we had our priors coming into the year saying that Jerry Jeudy was the wide receiver 1 in Denver, that Cortez Sutton was the wide receiver 2, and then that got confirmed week 1 whenever we saw them both on the field at the same time, I think we probably need to be standing by that. Now, Jerry Jeudy will be coming back. I don't know when. Maybe it's 2 weeks. Maybe it's 3 weeks. Maybe it's this next week. I don't know. All I know is we are 1 week closer to Jerry Jeudy getting back. Cortez Sutton did just put up a very strong performance where he had 11 targets, 120 yards, a touchdown at the same time, and 7 receptions to go along with it. So it's impressive that Sutton was able to do this against a good defense. It's impressive that he was able to do this at the same time while dealing with an ankle injury that he suffered at practice on Friday. But knowing that we're getting Jerry Jeudy back here sometime soon, I think it's going to be a spot where we most likely are going to be looking to sell Sutton just before he's in a position where, I mean, with Jeudy on this roster, with Jeudy active, I'm probably not starting Cortez Sutton. I hate to say it. Obviously, Sutton has been fantastic, and he's made multiple of our must-start wide receiver videos. But that's with no Jerry Jeudy here. Jerry Judy's about to be back. Now, our next player we're going to discuss, I want to put a little asterisk on it because I'm not going to be saying to sell this player no matter what, but I at least want to see what kind of value we can get in return. Hear me out. Jamar Chase. And yes, with Jamar Chase, I have to admit, I just need to take a massive L here. I came out and I said way too many bad things about Jamar Chase this offseason. This offseason, I was saying anybody taking him over Travis Etienne, they were making a mistake. I almost still want to stand by that. Of course, we haven't gotten to see Travis Etienne on the football field, but still, I mean, we were just calling Jamar Chase some of the worst picks in dynasty rookie drafts in particular, whenever you were taking him ahead of guys like Trey Lance in Superflex leagues, whenever you're taking him ahead of Travis Etienne, a rookie running back that checked every box. And Jamar Chase has come out, and even just in 2021, at 21 years old, after taking a year off in football in 2020, and he has looked like the best rookie in the NFL. I mean, couldn't you make an argument for anybody else for Offensive Rookie of the Year other than Jamar Chase? I don't think you can at this moment. I mean, so far, he's had 7 targets a game and a touchdown a game to go along with it. So the efficiency is through the roof here with Jamar Chase. This past week with T. Higgins coming back in, he had 10 targets, 6 receptions, 159 receiving yards, and a receiving touchdown to go along with it. Jamar Chase looks like in not that long, he could easily be the best wide receiver in the NFL. And I know it's crazy for me to say that, but with this kind of rookie production right away at 21 years old, I mean, it's hard to talk negatively about Jamar Chase. But with that being said, at this time, you are going to be having an elite price tag with Jamar Chase. I mean, this is someone that's been a wide receiver 1 so far this season as a 21-year-old. I think with the addition of T. Higgins back into this offense on a full-time role, because if you look at the snap data, I mean, T. Higgins didn't play every snap this past week. T. Higgins didn't come close to playing every single snap. I think when we are getting that role expanded for Higgins, whenever the Cincinnati Bengals aren't getting the luxury of playing in an additional period, they're not going to get to play in overtime every single week. I think you may see the overall passing volume slightly take a dip down. Maybe they look to lean a little bit more on the run when they're getting Joe Mixon back 100% healthy. I think T. Higgins still is a co-wide receiver 1 on this offense with Jamar Chase here. I hate to say it because he's looked fantastic, but put the asterisks on there that we need an elite wide receiver in return. But I think you can get that. I think in a lot of leagues right now, you could go and trade Jamar Chase, who's been a lot more productive than Stephon Diggs, but I think you can make that swap straight up. Now, another player that I want to bring up here, another rookie, and we're going to be putting a giant asterisk on it because we're not selling for any price, but I at least want to be putting out some feelers. Cadarius Toney. Now, hear me out on this one. Hear me out. The problem with Cadarius Toney, and we kind of talked about this in the live stream last night, is trying to figure out exactly what the game plan is with starting Cadarius Toney in our lineup, because this week in particular, when they are going up against the Los Angeles Rams, I don't think we can be starting Cadarius Toney, even if you have no Kenny Golladay, even if you have no Sterling Shepard, even if you have no Darius Slayton in this offense. Daniel Jones with a concussion, if he does not clear concussion protocol, and this Giants team's going up against one of the toughest defenses in the NFL, good luck playing Cadarius Toney, because this offense isn't going to be able to move the ball down the field at all. I wouldn't be surprised if this offense is pulling what you had with the Houston Texans versus the Buffalo Bills 2 weeks ago, even if Cadarius Toney looks great. I mean, that's like starting Brandon Cooks against the Bills 2 weeks ago when Davis Mills throws 4 interceptions and has 0 points overall scored. I think you could see a similar thing here with this entire offense collapsing with no Barkley, no Golladay, no Shepard, no Slayton, no Daniel Jones. Good luck scoring the ball against the Los Angeles Rams. Now, to go along with this, if we were trying to look further than this, if we're going a little bit further down the horizon, when is the realistic time that we are going to be starting Cadarius Toney? Because in week 7, by the time we get there, and we do get Daniel Jones coming back in, and we do get Saquon Barkley potentially added back into this offense where this team can pick up first downs, this team can have trips to the red zone. By that time as well, knowing that they decided not to put Sterling Shepard and Darius Slayton on the short-term IR just a few weeks ago, we are most likely going to have Shepard and Slayton back into this offense at the minimum with the potential for Kenny Golladay at the same time. So if we're looking at Cadarius Toney, while he has looked dynamic, while he has looked fantastic, the situation I don't think will ever be as good as it was against the Dallas Cowboys, where you had Daniel Jones for a good portion of this game, and you also had no Shepard, you had no Darius Slayton, and it was a very nice matchup at the same time. Now, he looks like he's very talented. I think he's more so a depth piece, and also dealing with that ankle injury. I know it's not significant, but still it's something to mention nonetheless. I think if we can use him as a hot name right now, if we could try to package him together with another player on our roster, get an upgrade in our starting lineup, probably something I'm looking to do. Keep in mind, not selling for just anything. We're looking for a nice return, but I think you can easily get that nice return right now. Now, our last wide receiver going to be someone that was a must-start wide receiver for us this past week. I mean, everybody in the live stream, we told them, you got to start him, you got to start him, you got to start him. I mean, he was our underdog lock of the week at the same time. Emmanuel Sanders. Now, here with Emmanuel Sanders, this is a wide receiver that this past week, he crushed 2 receiving touchdowns, and he had 54 receiving yards and 3 receptions against the Kansas City Chiefs. But if you're looking at Emmanuel Sanders, I know he's had a decent amount of production over the past 3 weeks. I mean, he had 26 points, 13 points, 20 points scored over the past 3 weeks. But if anything, the opportunity in this offense is slightly going in the opposite direction, where in week 1, 8 targets, then 6 targets, 6 targets, 6 targets, 5 targets. I mean, it's literally like a linear line going down with the opportunity that he has in this offense. And I don't want to be making this too big of a deal, but this is more so a spot like we discussed with Clyde Edwards-Helaire a while ago. That Clyde Edwards-Helaire was a buy low candidate for us after he had the weeks where he had all the opportunity in the world and the fantasy points weren't there. But as soon as he started scoring points and the opportunity was slipping away, that is the time to then pivot from having a buy low player to a sell high player. So Emmanuel Sanders, very similar to Cadarius Toney. I think that this is someone that you're probably looking to upgrade a wide receiver in your starting lineup or a running back in your starting lineup, and you can use Emmanuel Sanders as an add-on in that deal. Now, thank you. I really hope y'all enjoyed this video. Please go down there, drop a like, leave a comment, subscribe to the channel. Of course, when you do that, you get entered in to win a Fantasy Flag Network hat. And yeah, that's all I got for y'all. Hope you have a great day, and I hope I see y'all on the live stream tonight.